Somebody's out there clipping away tonight, that's for sure.
Well, that totally sucks. Not great verbiage, but the reason I called is because I called my cousin to listen to the program. It was a little after midnight, and you had just teased Alex was coming. Mm-hmm. So I left a message on my cousin's phone that Alex Jones' portion, the 2 hours, was going to be happening, and then maybe she could listen to the rerun of Jesse Ventura. And I left this message on her phone. I don't know where she is. But then, within about a few moments, really, I turned around. I was in my bedroom. Now, I was hanging up clothing. I was in my bedroom. I turned around, and my telephone was on.
It was on?
It was just like, I had hung up. Everything was fine, but and I had made the phone call about maybe 10, 15 minutes prior, and then all of a sudden, I looked, and I went, oh, my God. So I kind of, if and when you get Alex back, I thought I would be cut off before now.
Well, he's back, Deb. He's popped back on. Alex, I'm now convinced somebody's playing around with your line.
I am looking at the phone. I've been using this phone. I did just move a few weeks ago for 2 weeks. It works perfectly. I've done probably 20 other radio interviews and not had one problem. It is sitting 5 feet from me, and it's the type of phone where the cradle has the hang-up button. And right when I'm talking about the admissions now
that controversial.
That Al-Qaeda, this is now in the Wall Street Journal headline, the core of the rebels is Al-Qaeda Mujahideen. The government's now telling us Al-Qaeda are the good guys against Gaddafi, who 6 years ago signed a peace deal with the U.S. and England. I'm covering this key information, and I get disconnected for a second time. Now, maybe it's an accident, but this has never happened in my dozens and dozens of interviews. How many times I've been on your show, George? Does anybody know?
Countless.
It's got to be over 60, 70, because I can go up to coasttocoastam.com and kind of look at the old guest areas, and every year.
And even the little 1 hour spurts, they don't count those as numbers. So you're right. You could be up that high.
Yeah, it's got to be above 60 or so. So all I know is this is bizarre. But getting back to what the caller was just saying, G. Gordon Liddy, talk show host. I remember 10 years ago listening to him talking about, and then I went and looked up the news articles on it, and he was being accurate. He was an FBI agent, and he said that the main wiretaps they use are not even so much tapping your phone when you're on your landline or your cell phone now, but what they do is they just dial in, and the FBI has systems where they activate the phone even when it's in the cradle, and now it's a wiretap inside your house. And so that could be a malfunction with her phone, but when it's admitted that the government has over 1 million roving wiretaps going at any one time with computers basically recording most of the conversations in the country, then they'll put a random wiretap in and turn your cell phone on and just listen to what you're saying and doing. This is all mainstream news, but I don't want to even go down this road in all these interviews I ever have, but I just hope I can finish up the next 12 minutes here, George, because I'm so honored to be here.
All right, let's go to Bemidji, Minnesota. Sue's been waiting, and now Sue is on. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi. I just want to let you guys know how grateful we all are for the work that you do, and also Governor Ventura. I really appreciate you having him on. And one of the things that I was really hoping that Governor Ventura and you guys could look into is the connection between the FBI, I guess they call them the finders, and the drug and child sex trade.
I've actually researched this. For those that don't know, what was it, in 1987, the Washington Post and Washington Times reported that there was an FBI raid after in Florida they picked up 3 little kids in a dirty van on dirty mattresses, disheveled. And when they busted the guy, he said, look, here's my CIA credentials. I'm about to fly these kids out of the country. And the FBI then raided the Finders facility, this child charity. This was in the news, in D.C., and it was satellite uplink, CIA-run, giant child kidnapping operation. And since then it's come out, even in the Chicago Tribune, that DynCorp, Halliburton, and other groups have been involved in the sex trade and the trafficking in women. and children. I mean, that sounds incredible, folks, but I wouldn't say it if it wasn't in a source. As George has said, I'm a collector of information. 99% of what I cover is something that I can completely document. And I read earlier out of the London Guardian how big U.S. bank laundered billions from murderous Mexico drug gangs. Here's Bloomberg. Banks financing Mexico drug gangs admitted in Wells Fargo deal. Here's another headline. I mean, but the incredible thing is about phones. I do have a story that is that 1% where it's a personal experience. George, if I've got about a minute, because I know you want to take more calls, I can tell you an incredible harassment story.
Sure, go ahead.
And I may have told this before, but I've told it on my own broadcast. At the 2008 Bilderberg, where we had security walk up to us 10 minutes before it happened and say, hope nobody pulls fire alarms because we'll arrest anybody that pulls fire alarms. This is the day before they officially shut the hotel down and kicked us out. And then I go in my room to call you or for you to call me to be on the show, and Tom calls, and right as we go live, a minute into you interviewing me, the alarm goes off, and then I go downstairs after they ruin the interview, and the head of security comes over and threatens me and says, if you do one more thing, I'm going to have you arrested, even though I wasn't talking. 3 days later, when that event ended, and Obama and Hillary were at the event, President Obama and then Senator Hillary Clinton, Bilderberg was over. We were catching our flight in a couple hours. There was a steakhouse there by Dulles Airport nearby the Bilderberg meeting place, and my wife called. And I'm sitting there eating a big ribeye steak with my guys, and she says, hey, honey, my dad's in the hospital. She gave me the medical issues. He was in bad shape. Thank God he got better. But she gave me the specific medical issues on my cell phone. I talked to her about 3 minutes, and I said, honey, I got to finish this steak and get in the car and get over to the airport and drop off the rental car. I said, I love you. I'll be home in about 4 hours. And she said, okay. And I said, get to the hospital, see your dad. And the globalists always strike when you're psychologically weak. So I hang up the cell phone. I go back to my ribeye and my Sam Adams beer, and I'm sitting there with my 3 crew guys, and they were all witnesses to this, and my wife calls back 3 minutes later crying. And I said, what's wrong, baby? What's wrong? And she goes, I got another one of those calls, because we've had these off and on probably 10 times. A woman calls up and says, hi, I'd like to talk to Alex. My wife says, well, he's gone. He's out of town. Can I take a number? And she goes, well, why? Where is he? And she goes, to make her suspicious. My wife goes, well, who is this? She says, well, I don't need to tell you. She says, well, this is his wife. And she says, well, that's impossible. I'm pregnant with his baby.
Oh, my God.
But it gets worse. And then I'm going to finish. Then my wife goes, I've heard this before. And so then a man comes on the phone and says, listen, you bleeper, and says her dad's medical condition to her and says, I hope he bleeping dies in a mean voice and hangs up. So the government or private contractors who've been following us around were real angry that we got Bilderberg out that year on your show and Drudge. They were there, and they were listening to my phone, and then they called up and harassed my wife. That's who runs this government, folks.
That's scary. Kelly is in Moline, Illinois. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hi, George, Alex.
Hi.
First of all, I want to say God bless both of you for what you do and keeping us all informed out here. My statement is that I have always believed that 9/11 was a precursor to this financial mess that we're in now. Mm-hmm. I believe they brought those buildings down to hide all the financial paperwork files, whatever, to cover up the stealing the largest heist in history to steal trillions of dollars out of our economy. What do you think?
What do you think, Alex? That sounds kind of plausible.
Well, I mean, it's on record that the big mega banks in 2008 basically played possum and said that they were going into a depression if we didn't give them unlimited money. And for the third time in 3 years, the Queen of England suspended the Canadian Parliament 2 weeks ago because they weren't following her orders. And the same thing has happened in Australia in 79. So there's an example of the Queen of England's power that she can just shut down a parliament of one of her commonwealths if they don't do what she wants. It's okay to have a ceremonial parliament as long as they do what they're told.
Yeah, you're right about that. We've got time maybe for one more or two. William in Green Bay, Wisconsin. First-time caller. William, thanks. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex and George. I'm wondering, do you see the connection between what you research and time prophecy. And the
You
other
cannot ignore the incredible parallels of things written 2,000 years ago, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. I mean, you read Ezekiel, you read other books. I mean, a flying disc with fire coming out of the bottom, metal, giant metal birds dropping bombs the size of mountains that create, huge explosions. Yes, George.
There you are. Almost lost you again.
Yep. See what I'm talking about?
That is strange. One quick question for you.
Yes,
FBI releases 2,000 documents. Included is a memo about a 1950s episode. I think they were talking about Roswell from 47, but the memo was dated 1950, where they said they had 3 crafts, 3 occupants per craft. It's a bizarre story. We're following up on that, Alex.
There are giant agendas going on that we don't know about. We're on a planet in space. All sorts of things are going on. I can't get the public to admit that radioactive isotopes are being added to their drinking water, even when it's CBS News in Texas. So there's no doubt that, and I have seen those new documents that came out. It's unbelievable. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, as radical as I sound, as radical as George sounds, the truth is people just 500, 600 years ago thought the world was flat. And many people that sit there and scoff at the issues that George and I bring up, they're basically the 21st century of flat earthers. We're just questioning, we're investigating, we're opening people's minds, their eyes, we're widening horizons, and we need to expand that trailblazing, investigative, exploratory spirit. That is what is going to save humanity. We need to stop being spectators who just sit back on the couch and receive the propaganda. We need to start thinking for ourselves, getting involved, and supporting alternative media, chief among it, coasttocoastam.com, Infowars.com, because for whatever reason, the system is frightened by these shows. They're frightened by the alternative media. They're frightened by talk radio because it gives you a voice, and it's uncontrollable, it's not scripted, and the system doesn't like it.
You got that right. Alex, thank you so much on the program. Alex Jones, for Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladouceur, Stephanie Smith, Ross Mitchell, George Knapp, Ian Punnett, and Art Bell. I'm George Norrie, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.